Luke, did you take any habits or traditions from Chinese culture because of your wife? Hey, that's a good question. So, as many of you know, I am married to a Chinese lady. I got married in China. So, my parents in law are Chinese. And I lived in China for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years totally. I've lived in China, maybe a little bit more. So that's quite a bit of my life. And the question is, have I picked anything up? Have I taken on any Chinese culture onto myself? And I think the answer is yes. I think I've definitely been changed in a way by Chinese culture. Now, some things are more traditions or things that I like or preferences. Now, the preference might be something like eating etiquette. So, for example, the way that people in the West and especially Americans like to eat is I have my food, mine, mine, mine. I have my plate with my food on it. That's what I have. Which is fine, right? You have your own food. That definitely is good. But in other cultures around the world, Japanese has it to some extent, but China especially, the idea of sharing food is really important. In other words, it's respectful if you're eating with a group of people. If you're sitting, for example, around a circular table, which is another thing that's common in China, that you will give someone a piece of food, put it on their plate perhaps, and they will take that. They will accept it. If someone gives you a piece of food, you can't say, oh, no, don't give me that. That's not nice. So there's some etiquette there that's important. I don't know if I picked up the etiquette so much, but the overall sort of community feeling of sharing hot pot, for example, sharing food that's in the center of the table and maybe having just a little plate for myself makes the experience much more interactive. It makes it feel like it's not only my own thing that I have here, it's something that I'm part of with others. We're sharing this thing together. This thing is in the middle. We're all taking from the middle. Now, that has changed somewhat as Western food has become maybe more popular. In China, I suppose it's changed a bit. But generally speaking, this is a tradition, and it's one that I personally like better, I think, than my own Western tradition of having my own food on my own plate. Leave me alone. When I want more, I'll get some. Don't ask me. So this sort of concern for others who are eating around you, this is something that I find very interesting and something that I certainly picked up from Chinese culture. Another thing, frankly, is the element of modesty. Now, that doesn't mean that Americans don't understand modesty. I think a lot of Americans do understand modesty. But sometimes there is an emphasis or a focus on, how can I say it? Let's say overconfidence at times. Not all, of course, there are many Americans who are very shy and very timid. That's a stereotype. That's not true across the board, but it is true in many cases. All right. Now, I'm quite a confident person, and sometimes that confidence can come across as, in some situations, maybe a bit arrogant. In some situations, maybe overconfident. In some situations, it might make others feel uncomfortable or not want to say something. And as I've, really lived in China and experienced China and this sort of Chinese virtue of modesty, which is, yeah, maybe I am good at something, or maybe I feel that I am good at something, but I don't need to display it all the time and show it to others all the time, right? This can be a very good thing because it makes others comfortable. It makes others feel like you are recognizing them. It just improves I find the relationship among the group if it's not about the ego of one person. And I'm not saying I'm a crazy egomaniac necessarily, but the focus on empathy in China is definitely something that has rubbed off on me, I think in a positive way. And I've generally tried to learn that sense of modesty that I didn't have as much before. Again, not that I was necessarily an arrogant, self-centered person completely, but I definitely learned some sort of sense of behaving in a modest way and the effect that has on people around me, noticing how other people are acting. Now, that doesn't mean that I've picked up everything from Chinese culture. There are deeper ideas like the idea of face, 面子, and also of this thing that's sort of a version of social connections, which is much more complicated, right? That's called guanxi, and it's very complicated, and I don't fully understand it. And what I do understand of it doesn't make me super comfortable. The idea of needing certain relationships in order to gain power and influence, and obviously that's true everywhere, but it's really an emphasis in Chinese culture. Not my favorite thing. So there are things I picked up, things I didn't pick up, and some things I don't even know about that I'm still learning. I mean, obviously it's a very old culture, and I don't know everything about it because I only lived there for a few years. But the more I learn, the more I find it very interesting. And it has definitely had an impact on me. And I've really enjoyed living in China. And if you guys who are watching this haven't been to China, then you should definitely go. Maybe not right now, but at some point go, because it's a very interesting place for sure. Especially, maybe Shanghai, Chongqing, and Beijing. Very interesting places. A lot of cities are interesting. I lived in Tianjin for 2 years. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, that's the answer.